Hello everyone and welcome back to Abundantly Minimal. It has been so long since I've last done a full clothing declutter. It's more so been gradual decluttering, but the time had come. The catalyst for this is that I recently got a color analysis. Now I know this has been around for a long time and I think it was relatively trendy in recent times a couple years ago. Someone in my circle our online circle had recently gotten it done, and I looked into it and decided that it was a good time to do so. I feel like there's a lot of things here that there are multiple reasons why it's time to declutter them. And that, by the way, I'm getting rid of all of this. So it's a pretty substantial declutter. And I used the color analysis results as one of the multiple factors that went into all of these here. Because a lot of them, there were 2, 3, even 4 reasons why I decided, you know what, it's time. And there's also a lot of reasons why I kind of put off this big clothing declutter, but I think I'll be talking about those today as we go through stuff. I just dumped it out after I washed everything, and my mom and sister are coming over tomorrow to look at some stuff, and then we'll be donating whatever is left after that they go through it. So I figured I'd walk you through it as we go and sort of chat candidly about the color analysis experience, where I'm at with clothing, and some of the rationale for this, and even why we got to this point, since, you know, I didn't realize how much there would be here. So just kind of jumping in first, we'll start with the color analysis piece. So I've never been one who really cares that much about fashion, honestly. My sister can definitely attest to that growing up, and even when I was more on my own. I was someone who did enjoy like color elements and wearing bright colors, certainly. But then I also kind of more so got on the gray and black train, just basically items that just kind of seemed to work well together and were sort of easy to just like throw on. And so it was interesting to kind of learn more about, you know, what the best colors are for myself, and it did actually make a lot of sense to me. I tried looking around online at first to see if it was something I'd be able to do on my own, and I just didn't feel very confident in my abilities to discern that. So I there was a local branch of the House of Color group, which I believe is a British group. And I did get classified as an autumn, which it does kind of make sense because a lot of the shirts I end up wearing, like on camera, there's like some rich green colors. And some of my favorite items have kind of fit into that. So I definitely could see it when I was being draped in all the different fabrics. And they give you the little booklet after of like the different like types of colors and whatnot. I'm sure that's not coming up super well on camera here. But yeah, it was quite helpful, and I was actually very excited. I think before I made the appointment, I was definitely feeling like it would be beneficial because of where I'm at with my wardrobe, and a lot of it I haven't been in love with. In terms of, in the last couple years, I did accumulate clothing a little bit faster than I had before, thanks to some thrift shopping and then also trip prep. If you watch my videos, obviously we've traveled a lot. So when we went to Antarctica back at the start of last year, I had to buy a bunch of cold weather items for that, even though it ended up being colder in Illinois, where we live, than it was in Antarctica when we were there. You just don't know. And certainly we were outside more, like on the boat and doing hikes and stuff there. But so we bought quite a few things for that. And then later last year as well, we went to Egypt, we went to Jordan, and those are definitely hot climates, but also where there's a bit more like modest dressing and wearing longer stuff. And of course, even when we went to Europe last year as well, wanting to be a little bit more dressy. I mean, here I kind of just wear yoga pants or leggings or really comfy stuff every day. And so going abroad, you know, you want to try to look a little nicer. So for instance, this is like a nicer top that I bought, but I didn't really enjoy wearing it too much after the trip was over. So there was certainly those elements. And I think also too, maybe people who also thrift can relate. I think especially if you maybe are going through your own body changes or just trying to, gradually evolve the wardrobe, you might try a lot of stuff at thrift stores, and some of them end up working and other things maybe don't. I know this cowl neck sweater, I think I only wore once or twice. It was thrifted, but ultimately just kind of very bulky item, but not necessarily something I felt like super joyous in. And a lot of times you don't know that in the fitting room, you find out later, which is also why I really like thrifting, because you're maybe only spending, $4 or $5 on an item as opposed to whatever the full retail price would be in a store. And then you might find yourself in a similar position. I paid X amount of dollars for this, and, I realized after a couple wears I don't actually like it that much. So I think that also played a role too. And then I am going to talk a little bit about weight here, but feel free to skip ahead to the timestamp I put on screen if you don't want to hear about that. But as you might have seen if you've been watching my channel for a while, I've struggled a lot with weight gain. Now I do think after my PCOS diagnosis in March, I think that for me definitely gave some clarity, and maybe as to why it's been a bit of a struggle. But I think my own optimism actually kind of got in the way. I knew that I was putting on weight, but I also knew I wasn't living the most optimal life to fix it. I was staying up till like 3 to 5 a.m. every night, pretty much, waking up around 10. So on average, my Fitbit would say I was getting about 5.5 hours of sleep. And honestly, I felt good. I felt really good doing that, even though all the studies say that's not enough sleep. I wasn't exercising as much as I should have been. Daily walk, but especially when we were at the condo or the apartment, I was often only getting 6,000 to 8,000 steps a day, which I know is good for some. I do try to shoot for the 10,000 in general, or at least in theory, that's what I want to do. And I knew that I was having probably too many treats and, not documenting things as well with what I was eating. But what's been interesting and helpful in the clothing decluttering aspect, sort of a bummer in reality, is that I actually have been doing a ton in the last, since March of this year. I'm getting always over 10,000 steps a day. I'm getting some days up to 25,000 steps a day. I'm sleeping 7 hours a night, which honestly I don't really like. I don't feel as good, but you gotta trust the process. I've been documenting better what I'm eating. I've been making more of an effort to increase protein levels and reduce excess carbs. Still on a vegan diet, of course, that's not changing. And so I've been making a lot of these changes, and it's been unfortunate because there really hasn't been a change in weight. I'm doing 8 supplements a day now. And so I think the downside of that is that it's okay, now I'm really trying and nothing's happening. So that sucks. But on the bright side, some of what you see here was hope that I was going to, once I started taking care of myself, I was going to get back to where I was, or get back to that smaller size. And I think the truth I'm realizing is that that's not going to happen at this time. I certainly can always be doing better. We all can. But I also, I'm not going to be doing anything crazy. From that perspective, what I can say is that, some of these items that are a lot smaller, maybe 2 to 3 sizes too small at this point, I can let them go. I'm not getting back to that size. And at least definitely not in this season of life where we are actively trying for kids. We're going on month 3 here that we've started trying for kids. So I am obviously very hopeful that, I will be pregnant before too long, but then also, as I focus on growing a human, I won't be getting into some of these smaller sizes too. So anyway, that's a lot of different reasons here. With the colors, kind of how I went through everything. There was a bin that I started with that was all smaller sized items. Things that I haven't worn in probably about 2 years or so. And I went through those first and ended up getting rid of about 80% of those. There were still a couple favorite pieces I kept, but a lot of that stuff was just not realistic anymore. And I know I've said this before, but you can hold on to things certainly that you have with hopes that you'll wear it again or just in case, whatever people say. But I know the truth is, if I have stuff just sitting around in a closet, in a bin, it's not going to get use, and it could get better use with someone else. So I always think about that too. I'm not trying to hoard items just for the sake of having as much as possible. And other stuff too, you just realize it's pretty bad. So these are even Patagonia pants, but I don't know if you can see, but there definitely was some wear here. So like this is not something good enough to donate. I know I have to look. I think they have some like programs, certain brands have like programs where they can maybe repair items or offer a replacement for certain things. So I'll have to see about that. So although the reasons are not always like the happiest with certain items and decluttering them, I think ultimately the process of letting go finally feels good, especially if it's been a while. So I went through those smaller items first. I would lay out items in a similar color grouping. So for instance here, these are some shirts that I had a couple years ago. I think this is also Patagonia. Both of these were thrifted, as is probably 80 to 90% of this stuff. And so I laid them out and then just used the little booklet with the related colors to see if it was a good fit. Now, these colors are not anywhere in the autumn group. So I mean, I've got like a purple here, which is not the shade. It's not really for pastels. And there's more of like a coral pink, but both of these items didn't really fit in with that. And again, I can't actually fit into these, so they don't fit. And I haven't worn them in years, and they weren't the colors. Strike three, you're out. So that was sort of the rationale there. Great clothes. I did enjoy wearing them for the time I did. I think it was before a road trip that I got stuff. I think also too, I know there's that brand Pact. They do a bunch of organic clothing. Can't remember if I ever shared this on the channel, but there was one time Jake and I went to the thrift store, and we think maybe one of the warehouses with Pact stuff just donated maybe all their returned items there, because there was a day we saw hundreds of those items at the thrift store at very good prices. So we might have bought like 40 pieces of clothing that day, and have over time worn a bunch of it. Some of it I wore out from wearing so much. Now, of course, in going through the colors too, there were items that I have worn. Like obviously, if something doesn't fit and you haven't worn it in years, it's a great candidate to let go of. But what about things that you have worn sometimes? Well, I think the truth is I really had to reflect about how much did I actually love or even like an item. And even if it was something that I liked, if it wasn't something that brought me a lot of joy, I just wore it because I had it, that could be a candidate to let go of. And so I think with gray too, as I was sort of like seeing the colors on me and reflecting about it, I just felt a lot more joy around a lot of the richer, brighter colors. And so even though, for instance, this gray little sweater thing to wear like over a tank or something, although there's nothing wrong with it, and I have worn it, a few times in 2024, for instance, I just don't think I would choose it as much anymore. I feel like the gray kind of washes me out. Of course, I'm not wearing colors. I'm not wearing colors today that reflect the recent color analysis, but this is a favorite shirt of mine anyway. So using that, I thought, you know what? I think it's finally time on some of these other items, even if I have still worn them. And that's up to everyone to decide like what works for them. I know other things. I wore this dress a lot when teaching. I feel like it probably doesn't look super flattering at this point, but I didn't try it on. Sometimes you have an item, but then because you don't have the related items, you don't wear it. I had this one pair of black boots I had thrifted maybe 6 years ago, and I wore them a ton with sweater dresses, but then they got holes in them, and I did not continue wearing them. I didn't replace them. And so because of that, I haven't worn my sweater dresses because I don't have shoes for them. And of course, I could just go get a different pair of shoes, but I haven't gotten around to that. Other dresses too, pretty dress, but just the fit's not right. Like these sleeves ended up feeling a little short, and I didn't really enjoy the fit or feel super comfortable in this dress. So again, the color analysis was certainly part of it, since I would hold something up and see, oh yeah, this isn't in the colors. But I think sometimes too, having this like extra perspective or almost like permission, you realize, well, maybe it wasn't even about the colors anyway. Maybe it was just that it wasn't fitting right, and I just have to make peace with letting it go. This is another example of a shirt I've worn a lot recently. This was a thrift store purchase just a few months ago, but the quality of the material, like it's already pilling a lot just from that short-term wear. So it wasn't the colors, and it was starting to fall apart. So definitely not made to last. Another thrift store purchase. This was an Old Navy active skort. It had the original tags on it at the thrift store, and it was at Goodwill when they have the half off pricing. So it's like, I think it might have only been like $1.50. Sadly though, the middle bunches up, and so it's just not very comfortable. More things that I had not worn in years from the small bin here. Some items too, I think if I was on the fence about it, but maybe I had a connection who would like it better, such as these are the Cuddle Duds shirts. I used to wear these a lot on their own, but I find I overheat a little bit if I'm not wearing short sleeves. So I really do prefer short sleeves unless it's like actually quite cold. And I'm not really a layering person. So because of that, it was just a situation where I'm going to offer it back to my mom to see if she wants it, because I think she gave it to me. So it's cool if someone else in your circle is interested in something. This was one of my favorite dresses, especially back in like 2020 and 2021. Also a thrift store purchase. And the colors weren't it, but also just overall the fit was not as good as it used to be. So, I feel comfortable moving on. And of course, that brings us, as I continue folding more, because I feel like I've said what I need to say, but I think that also brings us to a point of moving forward and realizing what is needed going forward. And so I think in addition to being able to let go of a lot of stuff after getting the color analysis, I think this will give me a little bit more clarity moving forward with shopping, whether that's thrift store shopping or like sustainable shopping. I know for myself, I try not to purchase too much and be more mindful of that, especially if it is a new item. But I also think too, sometimes you just can't find what you need secondhand. It's always great to start with that and try to find what you need. But, sometimes you can't find it. And I think especially as we approach this time of year, I think it's important not to go crazy on Black Friday sales, and we don't want to do impulse shopping or buying things just because they're on sale. But I think that sort of having a plan ahead of time can be helpful. This is funny. This is something from high school, and it's so sheer, I can see completely through it. This was Forever 21. That was not a great company, or they're probably still around. I don't even know. I'm hoping that as I prepare, if I am purchasing any essentials this year, around, Black Friday time or holiday season, just to make sure everything's mindful. Like, I actually haven't owned a pair of jeans in several years, but I feel like it might be time to cross that bridge. I just haven't felt compelled to, but yeah, I think, sometimes it's time to get back in there and kind of look into some of that other stuff. And I want to go forward and make sure that I do a better job of having clothing that fits and that I'm not living in the past or, past illusions of what is possible or what is realistic as I proceed. There's also some smaller things that don't need as much folding. I had purchased a lot of extra socks, like lawn and warm socks, before I went to Antarctica, and I just really wear short socks here around the house. So I've only saved 1 or 2 pairs, and then we've got more of those. Also some old bras and underwear of sorts as well that I was saving. So I think that pretty much wraps it up here. I know talked about a lot today, but I ultimately, to sum it up, I found the color analysis to be quite helpful and empowering. I was able to get rid of a lot of stuff. Again, just sort of simply going through the colors, not using this as the only factor. In all of these cases, it was sort of strike 2, 3, 4. There was definitely other issues such as improper fitting, not great quality, not very comfortable, not making me feel very confident, and yeah, using the colors sort of as just one additional tool to help me decide, is this worth keeping, and hopefully move things forward. And I think especially to being like moving this summer and getting settled in this house, it definitely really does call into question like everything. And I want to make sure that we're optimizing everything we can, especially as we lean into a season before, hopefully soon before, motherhood and having kids. So it's really good to try to get everything I can, or my hope is to get everything I can, squared away and ready to go, so that, it saves time later and it promotes peace of mind later, especially when there's a lot more going on. That wraps it up with me today. I hope this was helpful. I know it ended up being quite rambly as I was organizing this stuff and putting it together, but hopefully there was something valuable in it. I know clothing can be so challenging, and I think a pain point for many people, especially since you're not going to just get rid of everything and buy a bunch of new stuff all like at the same time. Although it does look like I've got rid of everything. I'll show some clips of what I have left in my closet. It's quite sparse compared to this. But yeah, part of moving forward. If you're interested in checking out some past videos, you can do so here. And I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Bye.